Tantor Audio, a division of Recorded Books, presents Love, Thy Neighbor, the prequel to the Kiki Lowenstein mystery series by Joanna Campbell Slan, narrated by Mcfadden. Prologue. My life in crime began with a good deed. You see, I dialed 911 after a neighbor took a tumble off his racing bike. Under the right circumstances, contacting the emergency dispatcher would have been a normal response to Sven Nordstrom's cry for help. But Sven's accident didn't happen under normal circumstances. It happened after a series of nasty interactions between our family, the Lowensteins, and his, the Nordstroms. There was definitely bad blood between us. When Sven took that fatal fall, my behavior as a concerned citizen linked me to his death in ways I couldn't begin to imagine. Rather than prove my good intentions, my cry for help looked suspicious. The ugly finger of blame pointed my way. That's how I, Kiki Lowenstein, became involved in a murder investigation. 1. My husband, George, and I took possession of our new house the minute it was habitable, on the Friday before Labor Day weekend. We literally walked in as the construction crew walked out. We were that eager to get settled. The technical term for this is beneficial occupancy, but in retrospect, it should have been called a big mistake. We should have waited another week and allowed a cleaning crew to thoroughly vacuum, dust, and scrub all the surfaces. But after 6 months in a cramped extended-stay hotel, the three of us were desperate to get out of each other's way. This house would actually allow us to go for weeks without bumping into each other. But first, we'd need to get settled in. The interior of the 4,000-square-foot building looked like the aftermath of a natural disaster. Sawdust thickened every surface, loose nails and screws had been scattered everywhere, drywall dust covered all the woodwork, dirty footprints marred the tile floors. The wooden floors looked dull, thanks to a film of ground-in dirt. Stray pieces of lumber rested precariously against the banisters and walls. In the midst of all that mess sat enough boxes to fill an entire moving van. All our worldly belongings had been packed in cardboard containers of all sizes. The stacked boxes towered over my head, in many cases giving me a surreal sense of existence. In the dim light, I could imagine visiting Stonehenge, where the stone monuments dotted England's landscape. Job 1 is setting up Anya's playpen, I told my husband. Otherwise, I don't know how I'll keep her from hurting herself. Once that's done, I can dig in and try to sort out this mess. Right, my husband George said. Once we get the playpen and the high chair, you can get to work doing your job, and I'll get back to mine. My job. It would feel good to be productive. George and I had met at my first and last frat party at college, where I learned that drinking purple passion punch is the first step on the path to losing your virginity and getting pregnant in one fell swoop. When George found out I was expecting, he immediately offered to marry me. Faced with a lot of bleak choices, I took him up on his offer. Once we'd tied the knot, there was never any question of living anywhere but here, St. Louis, George's hometown. At the ripe old age of 22, I'd gone from college sophomore to newlywed, from living in a dorm to a small apartment here in the Lou. The Lowensteins had deep roots here. Their connections allowed George to go into business with an old friend from high school. Together, the men opened a real estate development company. That partnership allowed us to build this honkin' big house, a regular McMansion at 4,000 square feet on a big lot in Ladue, the swankiest town in the metro St. Louis area. George acted as our subcontractor, borrowing crews from other jobs. This saved us a lot of money, but it also meant that building our house took longer than expected. Just think, George had said. "This will be the perfect place for Anya to grow up. She'll have everything her heart desires." I had agreed. Our child had definitely been born into a life of privilege. "Okay." George rubbed his hands together. "While I'm at work, bringing home the metaphorical bacon, your job is to get this place cleaned up and make new friends in the neighborhood." 2. A week after our move, a brisk knock on the front door announced my first visitor, Sheila Lowenstein, my mother-in-law. "Good morning, and welcome," I said. "Come here, precious." As usual, Sheila ignored me to reach for my baby. I yielded Anya without complaint. Balancing the toddler on one hip, Sheila walked past me. Her denim blue eyes scanned the mess. She wove her way between the towers of boxes and gave the place a quick inspection. "You have a real mess on your hands." "Yup." "Please don't talk that way. My granddaughter will pick up bad habits." I clamped my mouth shut and nodded. Sheila intimidated me. Often her criticisms echoed a voice in my head that urged me to adopt a higher standard. To an outsider, I was caving in. More truthfully, I was making a course correction. "Too bad you couldn't have had this place professionally cleaned before you moved in. You can't possibly let Anya wander around in all this debris." I'd never heard anyone use debris in casual conversation, but there it was again. Sheila was right. We set up her playpen, her crib, and her high chair. I've got her stroller in the trunk of the old BMW. She's properly corralled. Of course she wants to get down and explore, but I won't let her. "Most women in your position hire cleaning ladies, but those people also have active social lives. In fact, a great many of them volunteer in various capacities. If you'd like, I could put in a word for you. I know of a symphony committee that would put your skills to good use." "That sounds promising," I said. In my head, I imagined writing press releases or doing interviews. After all, I'd been a journalism student before dropping out of college. "So, you're willing?" Sheila planted a kiss on Anya's cheek. Could you tell me more? I'd like to know what I'm volunteering to do exactly before I firm up a commitment." My acceptance was less than wholehearted because my experiences with Sheila had proved she didn't think much of me. Although I needed the company of adults, I doubted I'd be joining them on an equal footing, especially if my introduction came from my mother-in-law. Quickly and sadly, I learned how right I was. "There's a public relations committee meeting tomorrow night at my house." My spirit soared. Wow! Sheila was really coming through for me. She continued, "While we discuss our plans, you can stuff envelopes. We have 2,000 of them we need to get out. Oh, and they need folding, too." Crash landing. Boom. My ego smacked up against reality. "Oops, I'm busy tomorrow night. Anya will need a bath." If that sounded petty, well, Sheila deserved it. "Suit yourself." She heaved a sigh of relief. I did the same. I had little desire to subject myself to the scrutiny of Sheila's friends, who ran various boards. While I admired her for giving of her time to good causes, I knew I wouldn't fit in. With a job, I might garner their respect. With grunt work, I'd only encourage them to think I was the village idiot. Their village idiot. Sheila knew it, too. Her smile was oiled with insincerity. "You will need to find some way to get involved in the community. Otherwise, how will Anya make friends? You don't want her to be an outcast, do you? She'll only have you to blame." That stung. Criticizing my popularity or my housekeeping skills was to be expected, but questioning my ability as a mother? That was another thing entirely. As I fumed, Sheila's mouth settled into a snarky Mona Lisa smile. Zinger sent, target hit. Score: 1 for Sheila and 0 for Kiki. The jab Sheila launched in my direction never failed to score a direct hit to my soft belly. I loved Anya more than life itself. The thought of her hurting herself on a bit of construction trash that had been left behind nearly paralyzed me with fear. Sheila had pounced on my greatest challenge, keeping Anya safe. I chewed the air, wondering how on earth I could manage to clean up the piles of sawdust, find all the scattered nails and screws, mop the filthy floors, wipe down the dusty woodwork, and unpack all our boxes from the apartment. The answer? I couldn't. 3. We've only lived here a week, I reminded myself after waving goodbye to Sheila and opening the door to the heating and cooling contractor. He banged away merrily at our unit, whistling as he worked. Smiling down at Anya, I said, "I'm getting things done, but it takes time, doesn't it, Pumpkin?" My baby grinned at me. "Bird?" she asked. Recently she'd learned that word, and now she was making full use of her newest vocabulary addition. Each time we went outside, she scanned her surroundings for a winged creature. The boxes and mess nagged at me, but the world outdoors issued an irresistible siren song. I'd gotten accustomed to the banging and clanging, but the blasts of alternating hot and cold air irritated me. "I've had enough. How about you? Should we go outside and look for birds?" "Yay!" she cheered. I loaded Anya in her stroller for a walk around the block. Once out on the sidewalk, I heard bike tires eating up pavement, and I froze in place, waiting to locate the source of the noise. Every morning for the past week, Sven Nordstrom had whirled out of his garage on his fancy racing bike, only to return an hour later. "He's a semi-pro bike racer," George had told me after he had walked over and introduced himself. "Can you believe that bike weighs less than 15 pounds? Anya weighs nearly as much. He rides an Orbea Orca M-Team road bike with a super lightweight carbon fiber frame. It costs more than $6,000. Sven is in training for a big race. He told me that he covers 6 to 10 miles every day, rain or shine, and he clocks himself." I admired the man's discipline. Since Sven left about the same time George headed to the office, I'd witnessed our neighbor's reliability firsthand. When it came to his daily bike ride, Sven Nordstrom was a well-oiled machine. Turning my head, I spotted him turning the corner into our cul-de-sac. He was right on time. As I walked Anya to the sidewalk, the bike zipped past me. "Bird?" Anya pointed to a wren hopping around on the mud pit that would eventually become our lawn. "Yes, sweetie," I said, but I couldn't stop myself from frowning. Bird and his friends were eating our grass seed. No wonder nothing was sprouting in the wet dirt. I would have to talk to George about this. He'd been counting on seeing new grass push through to the surface. After making a mental note of the problem, I watched Sven out of the corner of my eye. Rather than take his usual sharp right and speed into his garage, he hit the curb, hard. "Oh!" I clapped a hand over my mouth. His bike came bouncing back as it slammed into the concrete step and jolted to a stop, whereupon he promptly fell over with a clatter of metal against the pavement. Rather than immediately jump up, he stayed there on the ground and groaned. Turning the stroller, I pushed Anya across the street. "Sven, are you okay?" Although the man didn't know me, except to wave in passing, a result of George's having gone over and introduced himself, I knew he should recognize me as his neighbor. "Sven, I'm George's wife. Are you all right?" He didn't respond. In fact, he made no move to unclip his shoes from the pedals. His eyes seemed unfocused. He kept a frozen grip on the handlebars. It was as if a witch had cast a spell over him and locked him into place. "Let me help." I stepped away from the stroller and grabbed at the bike frame, hoping to lift it away. That provoked a reaction. "Don't touch my bike," he screamed at me. As I jumped back, he struggled to extricate himself from the tangle of tubes, wires, and spokes. "Are you sure you're okay?" I ignored how rude he'd been. I figured he was shaken up after the fall and annoyed by losing his balance. "Perfectly fine." In a smooth reverse squat, he rose to his full height, using the bike for balance. With one hand, he removed his helmet. The nicely chiseled chin and bright blue eyes contrasted with a healthy tan. A full head of blonde hair gave him a youthful look, but up close I could see the crinkles around his eyes. On closer inspection, I detected gray hairs among the gold. That said, the man had an enviable physique, and his tight biking clothes showed off every inch of it. "If you're sure you're okay?" I paused. "I'm only trying to help. My name is Kiki. I'm George Lowenstein's wife, and I live across the street. If I can do anything for you, let me know." He closed his eyes as if to get his thoughts gathered. They snapped open as he said, "I never lose my balance. Ever. Don't know what came over me. Usually I ride and don't break a sweat. Today I'm drenched." "Maybe you're coming down with a bug." Instinctively, I looked him up and down as if I could assess him visually and tell what was wrong. But when I got to his tight biking shorts, I blushed and averted my eyes. "Anya had a bit of a cold last week," I added lamely. Actually, I suspected all the sawdust in the air had bothered her. "I am never sick." Either he didn't like kids or he was too rattled to care. Most people remark on how gorgeous my daughter is. Sven didn't seem to notice. Brushing an errant piece of grass off his leg, Sven mumbled, "Hit me all of a sudden. Got dizzy, sick at my stomach." "Sounds like the flu." I had no idea whether it was or not, but that's what I'd overheard people saying at the drugstore. I was doing my best to make polite conversation. "As I said, you've met my husband, George. I'm Kiki. This is our daughter, Anya." "Right." Clicking the two pieces of his chin strap together, he hung his helmet over the handlebars. "I know who you are." He still didn't react to my beautiful daughter. Maybe he was one of those folks who just doesn't care for kids. "Your neighbors," I said again, for emphasis. "Right," he repeated himself. But the word seemed like a rallying cry rather than a confirmation that all was well. As he wobbled past me, I caught a whiff of a masculine sweat. Even though I was still standing there in his driveway, trying to make conversation, our visit was over. With his back to me, Sven opened the refrigerator in the garage, grabbed a bottle of Gatorade, and chugged the contents without offering one to me. I turned to go, stopped, and hesitated, realizing I might never get another chance to ask my burning question. "Is there some reason you leave your garage door up all the time?" "What are you talking about? We never leave it up. Not ever. Do you think I'd leave an expensive bike like this out in the open, where anyone could steal it? Don't be stupid." Wow. I was only wondering. Didn't mean to offend. With that, I pushed Anya back across the street. Moving at a fast clip, I hoped to put Sven Nordstrom and his nasty behavior behind us. So much for making friends. At least I could tell George that I'd tried. 4. Maybe I'd caught Sven at a bad time. Perhaps he'd been embarrassed by falling off his bike. I did my best to control my emotions by setting off at a brisk pace for a walk around the block. Getting Anya's buggy up and down, over the curbs and along the sidewalk provided her with endless entertainment, and me with great empathy for the handicapped. A couple of times grabbing the stroller and hoisting it over an obstacle seemed nearly impossible. Anya wasn't that heavy. The stroller wasn't that big. But together, the task proved challenging, especially when the stroller wheels touched down on a flat surface before I had the buggy fully under control. At one point, a wheel jammed into a crack between two paving stones. At first, I tugged and tugged on the handle. Next, I squatted down and pulled directly on the tire. Finally, I straddled the front of the stroller, bent over, and tried to jerk the wheel free. "What ho!" A masculine voice shocked me into losing my grip. If a hand hadn't reached out to steady me, I would have tumbled to the ground. "Are you stuck?" asked a tall man with a sprout of white hair in the middle of his bald pate. Although he leaned on his cane, he seemed sturdy enough. His black lace-up shoes appeared oddly formal, since his pants were corduroy. The maroon cardigan he wore had been buttoned wrong, a problem that happened to me all the time. "The wheel." "Right. I'll get it out of that hole for you. You get behind the pram. Make sure it don't topple over, will ya?" I did as told. Anya blinked up at the stranger. She observed, carefully, as he used his cane like a lever and popped the wheel free. "Thank you so much. I'm Kiki Lowenstein. This is Anya. We live around the corner." "Talbot Bergen. Where'd you say you live?" "Ours is the new house. Actually, it's still under construction. In fact, I'm glad to meet you, Mr. Bergen. You're the first person I've officially met in this neighborhood." Okay, I suppose I could count Sven Nordstrom, but I'd decided to make a fresh start of it. "Oh." Momentarily, Mr. Bergen looked confused. "Alma takes care of all that. She drops by when folks move in and invites them over for dinner." "That sounds lovely. We'd love to meet our neighbors. My husband, George, has been pushing me to get acquainted with everyone. Is Alma home right now?" "Alma?" I assumed he was talking about his wife. "What's this little girl's name again?" Either Mr. Bergen hadn't heard me, or he wanted to change the subject. "Anya. Her name is Anya." "I had a grandmother named Anya. Pretty name for a pretty girl." As a punctuation mark, he patted my daughter on the head. "Which house is yours?" I asked. "That one." He shuffled closer to a gray ranch with dark green shutters. From the design, I could tell it was one of the older, original houses in this subdivision. "Kitty!" Anya's chubby finger pointed toward a black shape in the window. "Kitty, kitty!" Mr. Bergen chuckled. "That's Bartholomew. Do you like cats?" "Kitty! Meow." Anya grinned up at him. Her two newest teeth were on full display. "She loves animals," I said. "Loves them. Absolutely nuts about them." "Good old Bart. What a rascal." "He's Persian, isn't he? Beautiful." "You'd think he was prissy, wouldn't you? But he's not. He loves to slip out and explore. Especially loves to prowl in that empty lot. Yes, ma'am, Bart is a small-sized panther. Meant the world to..." Mr. Bergen wiped his eyes with the back of his hand. "Talbot?" The voice came from a woman in brown knit slacks and a tired beige sweater. She came hurrying down the sidewalk with us in her sights. Her reddish hair was set off nicely by gold jewelry, but on closer inspection, it looked like very inexpensive costume stuff. "Talbot, dear, here you are. I've been looking all over for you." With a possessive air, she slipped her arm inside of his. "Hi," I said. "I'm Kiki Lowenstein, and this is Anya. Are you Alma?" "Not Alma." Talbot's eyes moistened. "Enid James," she said, but she didn't offer me her hand. In fact, she didn't even look my way. The softness around the jowls and the crow's feet suggested she might be in her 60s, and once upon a time she might have been a looker, but the years had run roughshod over her. However, she'd clearly taken great pains with her appearance. Her hair had been dyed a rich shade of red, and it brought out the gold flecks in her eyes.
"This here's my new neighbor."
Talbot sounded proud to introduce me.
"Really?"
Enid gave me an up-and-down examination. She wasn't unfriendly, but she was definitely judgmental. "Just moved in," I said, "across from the Nordstroms." A shift came over her, like a cold front blowing in.
"Lisa and Sven, the perfect couple."
Enid practically spat out the words before gripping Talbot's arm more tightly.
"You don't know how worried I was about you, Talbot. You don't want to catch a chill, do you? Let's go back to the house. Your favorite programs are on. We can play gin rummy if you want."
"Goodbye," I said as they turned away from us.
"Bye-bye."
Anya waved, but they didn't seem to care. Enid and Mr. Bergen seemed to be in their own world, a transparent bubble that separated them from the rest of us. 5. 10 days after we moved in, and 3 days after I tried to help Sven Nordstrom get up off of the ground, our house was still a disaster. My plan to whip it into shape had proved a non-starter. Workers still needed access on a daily basis. Various switches didn't work, mud needed to be applied to the drywall, blinds had to be measured, fitted, and installed. Each day brought a parade of new faces, wearing dirty shoes that marched in and out. Of course, George didn't see any of this because he left for the office each morning. When he came home at night, the look on his face told me he was disappointed in how little progress I was making, cleaning and picking up. But he had no idea how tough it was to take care of an active little girl, answer questions, respond to deliveries, make decisions on the spot, unpack boxes, make meals, and then, only then, try to clean up the messes left behind from construction. The parade of strangers totally unsettled me. By nature, I'm a shy person. When I get excited about something or when I'm comfortable, I can talk a blue streak. Plunk me down in a new situation, and I tend to freeze. My low self-esteem was exacerbated by the fact I knew I didn't look my best. All of my hair products had disappeared in the scramble of our move, leaving me looking like the wild woman of Borneo. I was still carrying extra baby weight, and none of my clothes were stylish. Anya had grown more demanding, the house was a constant nagging problem, and I never put on makeup anymore. After settling Anya in her playpen after our walk, I got a glance at my reflection in the mirror hung over the mantelpiece. My lack of personal care was evident. I gazed at the distorted image and shook my head. Maybe I'd scared off Sven Nordstrom and the kindly Mr. Bergen. Something had to be done, and done quickly. I ducked into a powder room and slicked my hair down with water. Belatedly, I realized that I didn't have a towel. Bent over the basin, I twisted my hair to squeeze out the water. That helped a little, but my curls were still dripping wet when the doorbell rang. "Hello?" I opened the door to a stranger in a suit and tie. I thought that he wore an air of irritation as he stared down his nose at me, but perhaps the water streaming between my eyes made it hard for me to see him clearly. "Mrs. Lowenstein, I presume? I'm Jeff Coulter, your neighbor on the other side of the block. Big red brick 2-story. "Hey, so good to meet you. Come on in. I can offer you coffee." "This isn't a social call, Mrs. Lowenstein." He straightened his tie. "I wish that it was. I came in response to complaints." "Complaints?" I echoed. "That's right. I'm the president of the Homeowners Association, so all the calls come to me. People are sick and tired of the ongoing problems caused by your construction." That knocked me for a loop. The peculiar layout of this subdivision had been one of the reasons we'd overpaid for the lot. No one could be bothered by the commotion but the Nordstroms, and since the Nordstroms were hardly ever home during the day, how could we be disturbing them? Maybe I'd insulted Sven's manhood by offering to help him after his tumble. Was that even possible?
Sample complete. Ready to continue?